this is your local pirate radio station, Radio Iona, transmitting from a secret location somewhere in the Midlands. Now, please bring time. Radio 3, good morning. My name is Peter Westbury. On Horizon this morning, we shall be looking at recent developments in neurosurgery. Brahms Piano Concerto No. 2. And now Radio 4 joins the BBC World Service from London and absolutely nothing else. It's a beautiful sunny morning, it's 8 o'clock and I can hear those cats.
You're tuned to Radio Caroline on 199, your all-day music station.
Radio Caroline was started in 1964 by one man's response to record company monopoly agreements. Within 3 weeks, it had acquired 7 million listeners. For 3 years, until the 15th of September 1967, the new Labour government did not legislate against the Pirate Caroline's obvious popularity. Then the Marine Broadcasting Offences Bill became law. Soon afterwards, nearly all the pirates but Caroline had closed. But in September, Radio 1 started broadcasting. Were Tony Blackburn's dulcet tones the death knell of pirate radio?
The actual pirate scene has just begun to take off again since the 60s with Radio Caroline and the pirates that were working on medium wave then. Now the pirates have moved up to FM because of the clearness of the signal, and there are now about half a dozen pirate stations broadcasting during the week in London. Those include DBC Rebel Radio, Radio Phoenix, Alice's Restaurant, Zodiac, and Uptown and Horizon. And so the situation is quite healthy now. There's a lot of new people coming on the scene, putting new ideas in broadcasting, and also in terms of alternative music that's not always heard on the radio as it is at present.
As far as we're concerned, we're just going to carry on until something happens, some sort of legislation to allow Andromeda to transform itself into part or all of a local community radio station.
Open to everyone.
From the Pennines on 88 megahertz VHF, this is Andromeda Independent Radio.
Andromeda Independent Radio. May the force be with you.
The programmes are pre-recorded the day before, or at most 2 days before, on cassette, high quality cassette. And then the whole lot is carted up a 700-foot hill in Tameside, and the broadcast is put on the air on a Wednesday night.
I see pirate radio making people aware of what might possibly be, making people aware that what they're listening to in the established radio system is not the only thing that can be there, that there can be other things and there can be different things. It's showing people what can be.
Well, I work as a DJ on Radio Zodiac and we broadcast on Sundays. We work as a collective and to formulate each week's programming. And we start at 12 at the moment, and we have 2 hours of African music, then an hour of reggae music with Coxzone, and then an hour of the latest new independent releases, and then an hour of magazine format where we interview people from who are working in different groups. Next week we've got somebody from the Ecology Party who's coming on to talk about the Green Gathering at Glastonbury. And then we have the following hour is a mixture of like our own favourite records. But each week we try to plan to do something different and are always open to new ideas from outside the station.
The reason we climb hills with various bits and pieces is because if we were to use a studio situation, like the situation where we record the programmes, and literally broadcast from there, and a raid happened and the Home Office arrived, they would confiscate everything loosely associated with the broadcast, including a personal record collection, a hi-fi system, and various bits and pieces. So by pre-recording things and taking them to a hill, we only lose the equipment that's actually out there, which can be easily replaceable. It's not too expensive and we can easily replace it. The penalty in law for what we're doing is a maximum fine of £400 and oblique or 3 months in prison. A criminal offence is the operation of a transmitter without a licence. The unfortunate thing is there's just absolutely no way at all you can get a licence to operate a transmitter like ours, so we have to operate a transmitter without a licence.
Why do the authorities take such a dislike to pirates?
Obviously, well, I think because they're worried about controlling the airwaves and in terms of having ultimate control over the communication that goes out to the listeners. Interestingly enough, in Poland, when Radio Solidarity was busted and they had fines and imprisonment, there was a big outcry in the media over here, in the press. But the same thing is happening to pirates who are broadcasting in this country now. And that was a point that wasn't made.
I'm interested in radio because I think it's important that radio is freed from the establishment kind of station and is brought more down to a personal level.
I'm interested possibly through a whole load of things, really. Annoyance that somebody can come along and say they control the airwaves, which they don't, because the airwaves are the things that belong to everybody.
Free the Airwaves is working for cooperation with pirates throughout the country and to actively campaign for a change in the broadcasting laws. The idea of us broadcasting illegally is to try and to force the government to bring about a change in the broadcasting laws, as happened with CB radio before it was legalized. It was a very popular form of communication, and so because of the number of breakers who were actually breaking the law, the government was forced to actually change the law relating to citizen band radio. And we hope that with the number of pirates broadcasting at the moment, there'll be a similar change in the broadcasting laws relating to FM radio.
I'd like to see a radio station in every town, and I mean every town, not just a borough or whatever, every town. And I think people ought to be able to knock on the door and speak directly to a person that actually broadcasts, a DJ or whatever, and get their views aired almost straight away. That would be proper access radio, and people cannot get access through local commercial or local BBC stations. It's almost impossible.
I don't like these lies, because that's all they are. They are lies. In the mid-60s, the Home Office and various other government bodies said there's no frequencies for offshore radio stations. I think we had something like about a dozen different radio stations, and they said there's just no frequencies in the medium wave band to allow these to continue. So they outlawed them, they closed them down, and now they're introducing, I think, a total of 69 commercial radio stations and something in the region of about 40 BBC local radio stations, which will all be using medium wave channels.
These three boxes are the transmitter. The important bit is in here. That generates the 88 megahertz that we broadcast on. And these two boxes are just for making it more powerful. So I'll show you how simple it is by just taking the lid off. And in fact, it only cost about £6 to build, and the box cost £3 of that. There's very little in it, it's very simple. But it's very, very stable and efficient and doesn't cause any interference to any other broadcasts. That's the actual guts of it. As you can see, there's not a lot in. It's very simple, but it does its job. But to work properly, it's got to have the lid on, so I'm going to cover it up again.
4,000 watts of power are used on Radio Manchester, the local BBC radio station. to cover an area which we're nearly covering with 1 watt.
The cassette player that we use isn't a hi-fi cassette deck or anything. It's a very cheap and nasty portable cassette. I won't mention what make it is. And I think it cost about 19 quid new. But we retrieved it off the scrap heap, put new guts in it, and there it is. And that plays back with extremely high quality. And the whole lot is powered from this rechargeable battery, which if we let it will last about 3 days. Oh, it's not sounding bad much.
We didn't move it much from that last time.
One. Okay, it's on now. Can you check the tone? Right. Got coming on?
Yeah, about 7.
Okay, here it comes.
1984 possibly came quite a long time ago, only it was slipped very quietly into this country and we didn't quite realise it at the time. This is Andromeda Independent Radio, the continuing sound of alternative radio, and during the middle of the week, isn't that terribly exciting? Here's a record for all the people in Loretto College.
As soon as you're born, they make you feel small.
Andromeda.
Radio has a great potential. It can actually start people thinking for themselves instead of having to look to somebody else to think for them.
Okay, it's nearly time to go, so it's goodbye from me. My name's Phil Travis, and if he was here, it'd be goodbye from Mark Terry. Never mind, I shall press a button, and we'll see you in a fortnight's time, usual time. Good night, and thanks for listening.
Good music radio.